Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The letter fluttered in Randy Archer's trembling hand, the Arizona heat already seeping through his cotton shirt. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he read his grandfather's final words for the third time. "Crazy old bastard," he muttered, folding the letter and stuffing it into his jeans pocket. The lawyer, a pinched man named Gutterman with suspiciously black hair, cleared his throat. Mr. Arthur Archer was quite particular about this inheritance, Mr. Archer. The mine has been in your family since 1937, though your grandfather prohibited anyone from entering it for the past 30 years. Randy kicked at the dusty ground, squinting at the weathered wooden sign that read Archer Mining Co. Beyond it, a rugged path disappeared into scrubby desert foothills. And there's nothing else? Just a worthless hole in the ground and some cryptic warning about a woman who might eat me? Gutterman's lips thinned. The property taxes are paid through next year. Beyond that, it's your responsibility. He handed Randy a small metal box. The key is inside, along with your grandfather's research notes. Good day, Mr. Archer. Randy watched the lawyer's Mercedes kick up dust as it disappeared down the dirt road. At 32, his life was a masterclass in false starts. 3 failed businesses, a bachelor's degree he'd never used, and a reputation around Phoenix as that guy with the schemes. Now he was broke, single, and the proud owner of an abandoned mine. He popped open the metal box. Inside lay an ornate key unlike anything he'd seen before, heavy brass with strange circular patterns along its shaft, and a leather-bound journal. "Last chance to be useful, Gramps," Randy muttered, tucking the box under his arm. The half-mile hike to the mine entrance left him drenched in sweat. What he'd expected, a simple wooden frame supporting a dark hole, wasn't what awaited him. Instead, a massive metal door was embedded in the mountainside, covered in symbols that resembled no language Randy had ever seen. "What the hell?" he whispered, running his fingers over the strange markings. They seemed to shimmer under his touch, as if responding to his presence. The key fit into a nearly invisible keyhole at the center of the door. When Randy turned it, the sound of massive gears grinding to life echoed from within the mountain. The door slid open with shocking smoothness, revealing not a rough-hewn tunnel, but a polished stone passageway illuminated by strips of blue light that flickered to life as the door opened. "No way Grandpa Arthur built this," Randy muttered, heart hammering against his ribs. The floor sloped gently downward and Randy followed it, tension coiling in his shoulders with each step. The air grew cooler but didn't have the damp mustiness he expected from an underground chamber. Instead, it smelled faintly metallic, like the air after a lightning strike. After 100 yards, the passage opened into a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling. More blue lights activated as he entered, revealing what looked like a cross between a Victorian laboratory and the set of a science fiction movie. Brass and copper machinery lined the walls, interspersed with screens made of an unknown crystalline material. On a central workbench sat stacks of notebooks filled with his grandfather's familiar scrawl. Randy flipped through one. The pages contained diagrams, equations, and notes spanning decades. "June 3rd, 1982, he read aloud. The symbols appear to function as both language and mathematics. I believe the entire facility is one integrated machine, though its purpose eludes me. The markings on the inner door are different, possibly a warning." Randy's head snapped up. Inner door? At the far side of the chamber, nearly hidden behind a bank of machinery, a narrow archway led deeper into the mountain. Unlike the smooth stone of the main chamber, this passage was rough-hewn, as if someone had forced their way through. "This is officially weird enough to bail," Randy said to himself, yet his feet carried him forward, curiosity overwhelming caution. The narrow passage descended steeply for another 200 feet before ending at another door, smaller than the entrance but made of the same strange metal, covered in different symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint, reddish light. This door had no visible lock, but as Randy approached, it slid open with a hydraulic hiss. The air that escaped was noticeably warmer and carried an electric tang that made the hair on his arms stand up. "Holy shit," Randy breathed. The chamber beyond was enormous, easily the size of a basketball court, with the ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. But it wasn't the size that stopped Randy cold. It was what hung suspended in the center of the room. Massive chains of tarnished metal descended from the darkness above, supporting a crystalline capsule the size of a car. The capsule glowed with a faint blue-green light, illuminating the complex machinery surrounding it. Inside, floating in luminescent liquid, was a humanoid figure. "This can't be real," Randy whispered, approaching slowly. As he drew closer, details became clearer. The figure was female, with elegant proportions and delicate features. Her skin was a soft, violet color that seemed to shimmer beneath the liquid. Her hair floated around her like silver seaweed. "A prop. Has to be," Randy muttered, though nothing about the chamber suggested a movie set or hoax. His eyes found a console near the base of the capsule, a panel of the same crystalline material as the screens in the outer chamber, embedded in what looked like ancient brass. Without thinking, Randy reached out and touched it. The entire chamber shuddered. The chains creaked and swayed as lights flashed across the console. The liquid inside the capsule began to bubble and evaporate at an impossible rate, disappearing into vents that opened along the capsule's frame. "No, no, no!" Randy slammed his palms against the console, searching for some way to reverse what he'd started. The machinery around him roared to life, mechanisms spinning and whirring that had clearly been dormant for decades, possibly centuries. A seam appeared down the center of the capsule, and with a final hiss of escaping vapor, it split open like a massive cocoon. Randy stumbled backward as a figure emerged from the dissipating mist, a woman, tall and graceful, with violet skin that glistened with residual moisture. Her eyes opened, revealing irises of brilliant emerald green that seemed to glow from within. Her face was inhumanly perfect, features balanced in impossible harmony. Silver hair fell in waves to her waist, partially veiling a body with curves that made Randy's mouth go dry. She wore what appeared to be ceremonial garments, strips of shimmering material that covered her only where absolutely necessary, adorned with intricate metallic patterns similar to the symbols on the doors. The woman's eyes fixed on Randy. She stretched languorously like a cat waking from a long nap and took a step forward. Her movements were fluid but slightly unsteady, as if remembering how to use her body. When she spoke, her voice was melodic but her words strange, a language that sounded vaguely like English but with archaic patterns and unfamiliar cadences. "At long last, mine prison hath been unsealed. Art thou he who shall claim dominion over me?" She studied him with those unsettling green eyes. "Thou seemest smaller than thy forebears." Randy backed away until he hit the wall. "What are you?" The woman tilted her head, adjusting to his speech. "Thine vernacular has shifted in my slumber." She paused, seeming to recalibrate. "I am Aurelia La Viscarosa, last guardian of the stellar covenant, and thou—" She stepped closer, the scent of ozone and something like cinnamon emanating from her skin. "Thou art now my master, bound by the ancient contract." "I'm nobody's master," Randy said, edging along the wall toward the exit. "And I don't know anything about a contract." Aurelia smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too white, too perfect. "The awakening binds us. 'Tis already done." She ran a violet finger along the console that Randy had touched. "Thy blood, even the oils of thy skin, they carry thy essence. The bond is formed." She took another step toward him, and Randy bolted for the doorway. He made it halfway across the outer chamber before a searing pain dropped him to his knees. It felt like his blood had turned to fire, his lungs to stone. Behind him, Aurelia appeared in the archway, watching with clinical interest. "Thou canst not leave me. Not now. The tether is newly formed and most sensitive." The pain subsided as she approached. Randy gasped for breath, staring up at the violet-skinned woman who seemed both impossibly alien and disturbingly human. "What did you do to me?" he demanded. Aurelia knelt beside him, her emerald eyes studying him like a fascinating specimen. "I have done nothing. 'Tis the covenant that binds us." Her lips curved into what might have been meant as a reassuring smile but came across as predatory. "Fear not, Randall Archer. I've waited nearly 2 centuries for a master worthy of my gifts." Randy's eyes widened. "How do you know my name?" "I know what thou knowest. I feel what thou feelest." She laid a cool violet hand against his cheek. And now, my master, we have much to discuss about thy inheritance and our shared destiny. Randy scrambled backward, his spine pressing against the cold chamber wall. How about we start with what exactly you are, because you're definitely not human. Aurelia rose to her full height, at least 6 inches taller than Randy's 5'10" frame, and regarded him with those unsettling emerald eyes. I am Visceracian, she said, her archaic speech pattern subtly shifting as she spoke, adapting to his language. My people traveled the star roads when thine ancestors still dwelt in caves. Aliens. Randy laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. My grandfather left me an alien. Thy grandsire was a most persistent human. Aurelia's lips curved. He studied our technology for decades, but never dared awaken me. Perhaps he lacked courage. Randy pushed himself to his feet, the earlier pain now just a memory. So what's this bond you mentioned? Because I'm not signing up for anything. The choice was made when thou touched the awakening console. Aurelia gestured to the crystalline panel. My life force is now tethered to thine. It is irreversible. Bullshit. Randy strode toward the chamber exit. I'm leaving. Find someone else to play master and servant with. He made it 10 steps before the pain returned, sharper, more intense. His lungs seized, and he dropped to his knees, gasping. Through watering eyes, he saw Aurelia watching calmly from where she stood. The tether stretches approximately 30 meters before causing discomfort, she explained clinically. Beyond 50, organ failure begins. Randy wheezed, clutching his chest. Make it stop. Return to me. Each step back toward her lessened the pain. By the time he stood before her again, he could breathe normally. Sweat drenched his shirt. That's your idea of discomfort, he snarled. My apologies. I have not been bonded to a human in nearly 2 centuries. I had forgotten your fragility. Randy ran a hand through his dark hair. So I'm trapped here? With you? Not necessarily here. Aurelia's rigid posture relaxed slightly. Merely with me. Great. Randy paced the limited distance he could manage. My grandfather's final prank. Trap me with a purple alien who talks like Shakespeare. I am adapting to your vernacular with each exchange. She moved toward the console, her movements becoming more fluid. And the correct term is violet, not purple. Oh, excuse me, violet. Randy rolled his eyes. Is there any way to break this bond? Death, she replied simply. Whose? Either, though mine would be significantly more difficult to achieve. She touched the console, and the chamber's lights brightened. There is much to explain, and I grow weaker. I require sustenance. Randy's stomach dropped. What kind of sustenance? Aurelia smiled, revealing those 2 perfect teeth. Not thy flesh, if that concerns thee, though thy energy. She stepped closer, and Randy felt a strange tingling across his skin, like static electricity. That I do require. My energy? Randy backed up until the tingling sensation faded. What does that mean? Physical proximity transfers small amounts. Direct contact transfers more. Her emerald gaze dropped to his lips. Intimate contact is most efficient. Randy's face heated. That's not happening. Then we shall both grow weaker. Aurelia swayed slightly. I have been dormant for centuries. My systems require regeneration. Despite his anger, Randy noticed her deteriorating condition. The luminescence beneath her violet skin had dimmed and her breathing had become labored. Fine. What do you need? A handshake? High five? Aurelia extended her hand, palm up. Begin with touch. I shall not harm thee. Cautiously, Randy placed his hand in hers. The tingling intensified immediately, spreading up his arm in pleasurable waves. It wasn't painful, more like the rush after a perfect shot of whiskey. He felt lightheaded but not weakened. Aurelia's skin brightened, the violet deepening to a rich amethyst. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. "Better," she murmured. After a moment, she withdrew her hand. "We should relocate to the upper chamber. There are provisions there." "How do you know that?" "I accessed thy memories when we bonded." She moved toward the passage. "Thy grandfather stored food and water in the outer laboratory." Randy followed, disconcerted. "What else do you know about me?" "Everything." She glanced back, expression unreadable. "Thy failed business ventures, thy broken relationships, thy financial difficulties, thy fear of becoming like thy father." "Stay out of my head," Randy snapped. "I cannot. The bond flows both ways." Aurelia paused at the carved passageway. "Though thou cannot yet access my memories, with time thou might." In the outer chamber, Randy found his grandfather's stash exactly where Aurelia had indicated, a small alcove containing canned goods, bottled water, and camping supplies. He tore into a package of beef jerky while Aurelia examined the laboratory with keen interest. "Thy grandfather attempted to reverse engineer our technology," she observed, touching a brass contraption. "Clever, but misguided. He lacked context." "So what is all this stuff?" Randy asked through a mouthful of jerky. "Monitoring equipment primarily, designed to track energy fluctuations from my ship." Randy choked. "Your what?" "My vessel." Aurelia ran her fingers along a crystalline screen, which flickered to life at her touch. "It lies deeper beneath this mountain. This facility was built around it after our crash." "There's a spaceship under here?" Randy set down his water bottle. "An actual alien spaceship?" "Damaged, but potentially functional." Her eyes gleamed. "With sufficient energy, it might be restored." "And let me guess, I'm the battery." Aurelia's lips quirked. "Think of it as a mutually beneficial arrangement." She stepped closer, trailing a slender violet finger along his jawline. "I need thy energy, and well, thou will soon discover what I can offer in return." The touch sent another wave of that pleasant tingling through Randy's body, stronger this time. He jerked away. "I need time to process this," he said firmly, "and some actual explanations. Who imprisoned you? Why? And what happens if we do get your ship working?" Aurelia settled onto a chair, her ceremonial garments shifting to reveal more violet skin than Randy was comfortable with. Her speech had almost completely modernized now, with only occasional archaic phrases slipping through. "My ship crashed on this continent in what you would call 1821, she began. "I was the sole survivor. The humans who found me were frightened by my abilities. They enlisted scientists and mystics to contain me. The containment chamber was designed using salvaged parts from my ship, combined with your primitive technology. And they just left you there? For 200 years? Knowledge of my existence was passed down through a secret society." Aurelia's expression hardened. "Your grandfather discovered their records and found this place in the 1970s. He chose to study rather than free me." "Smart man," Randy muttered. "Indeed." Aurelia's lips thinned. "But he left me to you, knowing you would be more impulsive." 3 days passed in an uneasy truce. Randy attempted to sleep in the outer chamber while Aurelia remained near the containment pod, seemingly meditating for hours. But their bond's limitations meant real privacy was impossible. By the third day, Aurelia's energy had noticeably deteriorated again. Her skin had dulled and she moved with visible effort. Randy found her slumped against the crystalline console. "Hey," he said, genuinely concerned despite himself. "You don't look good." "The brief contact was insufficient," she murmured. "I require more to stabilize." "What do you need?" Her emerald eyes locked with his. "More intimate connection." Randy's heart hammered. "Define intimate." Instead of answering, Aurelia pulled him toward her with surprising strength. Before he could protest, her lips pressed against his, and the world exploded into sensation. Every nerve ending in Randy's body lit up simultaneously. It wasn't painful, quite the opposite. Waves of pleasure coursed through him, along with something else, knowledge, flashes of memories not his own. Stars seen from impossible angles, a city of crystal spires, the sensation of flying without a machine. When she finally released him, they were both gasping. What the hell was that? Randy managed. Aurelia's skin now glowed brilliantly, her earlier weakness gone. Energy transfer, and a taste of the knowledge I can share. That was... Randy struggled for words. Pleasant? Aurelia's lips curved into a knowing smile. Understatement of the century. Randy touched his tingling lips. But don't do it again without asking. As you wish, master. The title held a hint of mockery. Over the next week, Randy learned more about Aurelia's civilization and their technology. She explained how her people had visited Earth many times throughout human history, sometimes being mistaken for gods. Your myths of beings descending from the heavens? Often based on encounters with my kind, she told him as they explored deeper passages beneath the main chambers. Their bond had evolved. The pain of separation remained, but Randy had grown accustomed to Aurelia's presence. Their energy exchanges, which he reluctantly admitted were necessary, had become less one-sided. Each time their lips met or skin touched, Randy received flashes of knowledge, glimpses of stars and worlds beyond human experience. What exactly are we looking for down here? Randy asked as they navigated a narrow tunnel that sloped sharply downward. The access point. Aurelia placed her hand on the stone wall, which hummed in response. Each exchange strengthens our bond. I can now sense the ship's systems again. The wall slid away, revealing a vast cavern. In its center sat what could only be described as a spacecraft, sleek and organic in design, made of the same crystalline material as the console above. Much of it was embedded in rock, clearly damaged, but still magnificent. Holy shit, Randy whispered. Home, Aurelia breathed, her composure cracking for the first time. Or what remains of it. As they approached the vessel, Randy noticed movement outside the cavern entrance, a flicker of shadow, followed by the distinct whir of mechanical wings. What was that? He hissed. Aurelia tensed. We are being watched. Randy sprinted to the entrance in time to see a small drone disappearing up the tunnel, military grade, not civilian. This is bad, he said, returning to Aurelia. Someone knows we're here. Aurelia's face hardened. Then we have less time than I thought. She placed both hands on the ship's hull, which glowed faintly at her touch. The vessel requires more energy to reactivate. Much more. How much more? Full bonding. Her emerald eyes locked with his. Complete integration of our energies. Randy's breath caught. And after it's working, what then? Aurelia's expression softened, but her words were firm. I've been imprisoned on this primitive world for centuries, she said. I won't stay a moment longer than necessary, and neither will you. Wait, what? Randy backed away. I can't leave Earth. The bond makes it impossible for us to separate beyond a short distance, Aurelia reminded him. Where I go, you must follow. Randy stared at the alien vessel, then back at the tunnel where the drone had disappeared. The weight of impossibility pressed down on him. So those are my choices? Leave my planet forever, or die here when whoever sent that drone comes to claim you? Aurelia touched his face, her expression uncharacteristically gentle. There is a third option, Randall Archer, one you haven't considered. Which is, her emerald eyes gleamed, that you might discover the universe is far more wondrous than this small world you call home. The ground shook beneath Randy's feet, dust raining from the cavern ceiling. A distant explosion echoed through the tunnels, followed by the unmistakable sound of automatic weapons fire. They're here, Randy whispered, adrenaline flooding his system. How the hell did they find us so fast? Aurelia's hands flew across the ship's exterior, activating hidden panels that glowed with emerald light matching her eyes. Your government has monitored this site for decades. The energy spike from our bonding would have triggered their sensors. Another explosion, closer this time. The cavern trembled. We need to go, now. Randy grabbed her arm. Can this thing even fly? It's buried in solid rock. It can, Aurelia said. her violet skin pulsing with faint luminescence that had grown stronger with each passing day, but not in its current state. A section of the hull slid open, revealing an entrance. Randy hesitated for only a second before ducking inside, Aurelia close behind. The interior defied everything he expected, not the sterile, mechanical environment of human spacecraft, but something organic and alive. The walls pulsed with the same light that emanated from Aurelia's skin, and the floor seemed to shift subtly beneath his feet, accommodating his weight. "It's beautiful," Randy murmured despite their dire circumstances. "It was designed for extended journeys between stars," Aurelia explained, moving toward what appeared to be a central control chamber. "The vessel adapts to its occupants." As she approached the chamber's center, a crystalline pillar rose from the floor. Aurelia placed her palms against it, and the entire ship hummed in response, lights flickering throughout the structure. "It recognizes me," she breathed, eyes wide with genuine emotion for the first time since Randy had known her. After all this time, the moment shattered as gunfire erupted directly outside the ship. Voices shouted commands and heavy footsteps approached. "Perimeter secured! Target vessel located!" a voice barked. "Containment team, move in with EMP charges!" "They can't breach the hull," Aurelia said, hands still connected to the crystal. "But in this weakened state, their weapons might disrupt the reactivation sequence." Randy peered through a translucent section of wall that functioned like a viewport. Special Forces soldiers in unmarked black tactical gear had formed a perimeter around the ship, weapons trained on its surface. Others set up what looked like specialized equipment, tripods supporting devices Randy had never seen before, emitting an eerie blue light. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Preparing energy disruptors," Aurelia's voice tightened. "Primitive, but potentially effective against the ship's outer sensors. They've studied my technology more thoroughly than I realized." The soldiers outside had donned strange protective gear, helmets with iridescent visors and gloves that crackled with static discharge. "How long until we can take off?" Aurelia's expression darkened. "Hours, at current energy levels." "We don't have hours." One of the soldiers outside activated his device. A wave of blue energy washed over the ship's exterior, and the lights inside flickered ominously. Aurelia gasped, her connection to the crystal momentarily disrupted. "They're trying to force a system reset," she said through gritted teeth. "If they succeed, we'll be trapped." Another blast hit the ship. This time, several internal systems went dark. Aurelia stumbled away from the crystal, her skin noticeably dimmer. "There's only one way to fully restore my abilities and power the ship," she said, emerald eyes intense as she steadied herself against a pulsing wall. "Complete bonding." Randy's heart hammered. "The energy transfer thing, like before?" "No." Aurelia moved closer, her scent, something like ozone and exotic flowers, filling his senses. "Much deeper, a complete fusion of our energies." "Will it hurt?" Her lips curved upward. "Quite the opposite." Outside, a commander shouted orders. "Power up to maximum. We need to penetrate that hull before reinforcements arrive." Randy glanced at the soldiers preparing another blast, then back at Aurelia. In just 2 weeks, she had completely upended his existence, challenged everything he knew about the universe, and bound him to her in ways he still didn't fully understand. Yet faced with the choice between captivity with her or freedom among the stars, the decision seemed strangely simple. "What do we do?" Aurelia took his hand and led him deeper into the ship, to a chamber that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. At its center stood a platform surrounded by spiraling crystals. "Once we begin, there's no turning back," she warned. "The bond will become permanent, unbreakable by any force in this universe." Randy thought of his life before the mine, the failed businesses, the empty apartment, the meaningless drift from one day to the next. What exactly was he leaving behind? "Do it," he said firmly. A tremendous blast rocked the ship. Through the walls, Randy could hear the soldiers breaching the cavern entrance. Aurelia led him onto the platform. "Remove your clothing," she instructed, already shedding her ceremonial garments. "The connection must be direct." Under different circumstances, Randy might have felt self-conscious standing naked before this perfect being with her flawless violet skin and ideal proportions. But as another explosion shook the ship, modesty seemed irrelevant. Aurelia took his hands in hers, positioning them on her waist while placing her palms against his chest. The familiar tingling began immediately, but far stronger than before. Waves of energy flowing between them, building in intensity with each heartbeat. "Breathe with me," she whispered, her emerald eyes capturing his. "Let go of your resistance." The energy crescendoed, and suddenly Randy wasn't just feeling it. He was seeing it, tendrils of light connecting their bodies, weaving between them like living threads. The walls of the ship brightened in response, systems reactivating throughout the vessel. Aurelia gasped as her skin began to glow more intensely than ever before. The platform beneath them hummed, the crystals surrounding them spinning faster, creating a cocoon of light. Randy's consciousness expanded, memories not his own flooding his mind. Stars born and dying, worlds of impossible beauty, civilizations rising and falling across millennia. He saw Aurelia's world, a planet of crystal cities orbiting twin suns. He witnessed its destruction in cosmic fire, felt her grief as she fled with the last survivors, only to crash on a primitive world called Earth. Their bodies pressed closer, the energy between them building to impossible levels. Randy's vision widened out, pleasure beyond anything human experience had prepared him for, coursing through every cell. Through their connection, he felt the ship responding, systems fully awakening after centuries of dormancy. The vessel hummed with renewed power, the walls glowing bright enough to illuminate the entire cavern. Outside, the soldiers had breached the perimeter and were now attempting to cut through the hull with specialized laser equipment. Their commander shouted into a radio, "Target is powering up. Request immediate air support. I repeat, the alien vessel is activating." Inside the energy cocoon, Aurelia's lips found Randy's, completing the circuit. The ship lurched violently, rock cracking around its hull as ancient engines engaged. The platform beneath them softened, cradling their intertwined forms as the vessel prepared for departure. "Hold on," Aurelia whispered against his mouth, her voice somehow inside his mind as well. "This part might be uncomfortable." The ship surged upward with catastrophic force, tearing free from the stone that had imprisoned it for 2 centuries. The entire mountain shuddered, tunnels collapsing as the massive vessel forced its way upward. Special Forces soldiers scattered, abandoning their equipment as tons of rock crashed down around them. On the surface, researchers and military personnel scrambled from monitoring stations as the ground buckled and split. With a thunderous roar, the spacecraft burst through the Arizona desert floor, sending a plume of dust and debris thousands of feet into the air as it rose toward the clouds. Within minutes, military jets scrambled from nearby bases, but the ancient vessel moved with impossible speed, already reaching the upper atmosphere by the time they arrived. Inside, the energy cocoon gradually dissipated, leaving Randy and Aurelia still embraced on the now solid platform. The bond had changed them both. Randy's skin faintly luminescent, Aurelia's emerald eyes now flecked with brown. "We did it," Randy whispered, amazed to find he could breathe normally despite the ship's rapid ascent. "We actually escaped." Aurelia smiled, touching his face with newfound tenderness. "The ship has fully adapted to our bonded state. It will protect us both now." They rose from the platform, and clothing of a strange, fluid material formed around them, generated by the ship itself. Aurelia led Randy to the bridge, a breathtaking chamber with transparent walls offering a panoramic view of space. Earth shrank rapidly below them, a blue marble against the vast darkness. "It's beautiful," Randy said softly, watching his homeworld recede. The expected grief didn't come. Instead, he felt a curious peace, as if he'd finally found where he belonged. "A pleasant enough world," Aurelia acknowledged, "but just one among billions." The ship accelerated, stars smearing into lines as they prepared to leave the solar system. "What now?" Randy asked, still processing the magnitude of what had happened. "Where do we go from here?" Aurelia's lips curved into a smile as she approached him, the starlight reflecting in her emerald eyes. Her violet skin glowed with renewed vitality, her entire being radiating power and freedom. "Everywhere," she whispered against his lips. "I have 13 galaxies to show you, my love, and eternity to do it." Their bond hummed between them, stronger than any human connection could ever be. Through it, Randy sensed civilizations waiting to be discovered, wonders beyond human imagination, adventures that would span centuries. "Eternity's a long time," he murmured, pulling her closer. "Not long enough," Aurelia replied, "for what I have to show you." As their lips met, the ship accelerated beyond light speed, leaving Earth and humanity behind. The stars blurred into a tunnel of radiance carrying them toward their first shared horizon, the first of countless new beginnings. In that moment, Randy knew with absolute certainty that he had made the right choice. The universe awaited, vast and magnificent, and for the first time in his life, he was exactly where he was meant to be. Epilogue. 10 years later. The cantina on Proxima Station throbbed with alien music, a pulsing, multi-layered symphony impossible for human instruments to produce. Bodies of countless species moved on the central dance floor, illuminated by the shifting light of 3 miniature artificial suns suspended from the ceiling. At the bar, a tall figure in a midnight blue flight jacket downed a shot of luminescent liquid. The bartender, a 6-armed Nephian with translucent skin, slid another across the polished surface made from compressed asteroid minerals. "On the house, Archer," the bartender growled in the common trade language, "for the hero of the Cygnus blockade." Randy grinned, running a hand through his hair, now shoulder-length and streaked with premature silver, a side effect of his bond with Aurelia. His skin retained the faint luminescence that had manifested a decade ago, making him instantly recognizable to those familiar with his exploits. "That wasn't heroism, Czar. That was desperate improvisation." Randy tossed back the second shot, savoring the electric tingle as it traveled down his throat. "Besides, I had help. 4 trading vessels against a hegemony destroyer, and you armed with nothing but smuggled tech and that crazy ship of yours." The bartender's 3 primary eyes blinked in sequence, the stories already embedded in the station's historical archives. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. A group of towering reptilian beings had entered, face.Her mercenaries, easily 7 feet tall with armored scales and specialized breathing apparatus adapting them to the station's atmosphere. "Speaking of the hegemony," Randy muttered, casually adjusting the position of the modified Visceracian blaster holstered at his hip. The lead Vexar spotted Randy and nudged his companions. They approached with deliberate slowness, parting the crowd with their imposing presence. "The songs tell of a human with starlight in his blood," rumbled the leader, his translator converting the hissing language to something Randy could understand. "They say he dances with the violet goddess and steals hegemony secrets for sport." Randy raised an eyebrow. "Songs exaggerate. I'm just a guy making a living in a complicated universe." "You stole classified navigation charts from our outpost in the Taurus sector," the Vex-R accused, leaning closer. "High Command has offered 20,000 credits for information on your whereabouts." "Only 20,000? Randy placed a hand over his heart in mock offense. "I'm actually insulted." The cantina had grown quieter, other patrons discreetly creating distance between themselves and the confrontation. "The price is for information," the Vexar clarified, displaying rows of serrated teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. "The reward for your actual capture is substantially higher." Randy's communicator vibrated subtly against his wrist, a signal from Aurelia. He checked the small holographic display that appeared above his wrist device. A simple message scrolled across. "Incoming. 2 minutes." "Well, this has been delightful," Randy said, finishing his drink, "but I've got a prior engagement." The Vexar commander's massive hand clamped down on the bar, cracking its surface. "You misunderstand, human. This isn't a negotiation. It never is. Randy sighed. Then, without warning, he tapped a sequence on his wrist device. The artificial suns overhead flared blindingly bright for 3 seconds, long enough for non-humans with sensitive optical systems to be temporarily disoriented. The Vexer mercenaries reeled backward, protective membranes slamming shut over their eyes. Randy vaulted over the bar, grabbed a spherical object from his jacket pocket, and rolled it toward the entrance. It detonated with a harmless but spectacular shower of multicolored particles that created further confusion. The cantina's sound system suddenly switched from alien harmonies to a thundering earth rock anthem from the 1980s, Welcome to the Jungle, at deafening volume. Randy had loaded it into the station's entertainment systems months ago for just such an occasion. As the guitar riff echoed through the space, Randy sprinted toward a service corridor, the pursuing mercenaries still half-blind and disoriented. "Aurelia!" he shouted into his communicator over the music. "Please tell me you've got the engine modifications working." Her voice replied with the calm precision he'd come to rely on. 97% operational. The quantum displacement field should sustain for approximately 43 seconds. "That'll have to do." Randy rounded a corner, nearly colliding with a group of station security officers responding to the disturbance. "Evening, gentlemen. Just a minor cultural misunderstanding." He slid beneath their attempt to grab him and continued toward the emergency airlocks. Behind him, the Vexar had recovered enough to give chase, their heavy footfalls echoing down the corridor. 30 seconds to rendezvous, Aurelia updated coolly in his ear. Randy reached the airlock section and slammed his palm against a red emergency panel. Alarm sirens wailed as pressure doors began closing throughout the sector, standard protocol for a potential hull breach. The Vexar leader, more determined than the others, managed to slip through just before the final door sealed. He raised a wicked-looking energy blade, its edge glowing with superheated plasma. "The hegemony will dissect your bonded mate to learn her secrets," he hissed, "and you will watch before your execution." Something dangerous flashed in Randy's eyes, a glimpse of the power that now lived within him. Bad move, bringing her into this. Instead of retreating, Randy charged forward, sliding beneath the Vexar's swing. A decade of adventures across 13 galaxies had transformed him from an aimless drifter into a precision weapon. He moved with impossible speed, his body enhanced by his bond with Aurelia. The Vexar, despite his superior size and strength, found himself outmaneuvered. Randy struck pressure points even the mercenary didn't know he had, disrupting the neural pathways of his non-human nervous system. "That's a little trick I learned from a monk on Orphean 6, Randy explained conversationally as the massive alien crashed to his knees. He had 7 arms and could see through time, so I figured he knew what he was talking about. Through the viewport, a familiar vessel shimmered into existence, the Visceracian ship, now modified with technology from a dozen worlds. Its crystalline hull had integrated elements of other spacecraft they'd encountered, creating a hybrid vessel unmatched in the known universe. "Right on time," Randy grinned, tapping his communicator. "Ready for pickup, gorgeous?" External airlock compromised in 3, 2. Aurelia's voice counted down. Randy grabbed a support beam as the outer door suddenly opened. The explosive decompression sucked the stunned Vexar out into space, where a containment field from the hovering ship immediately captured him. Moments later, the ship's entry beam locked onto Randy, pulling him safely aboard through the vacuum. He landed on his feet in the arrival chamber, where atmosphere immediately normalized around him. Aurelia waited, leaning against the doorway, her violet skin radiant with power. The decade had only enhanced her beauty, and the bond between them had evolved in ways neither could have imagined. She now wore a captain's uniform of her own design, practical yet elegant, with elements that paid homage to her ancient civilization. "The Vex, our commander?" she asked, one perfect eyebrow raised. "Taking an unexpected spacewalk. Your containment field catch him?" "Of course," she smiled. "He'll make an excellent bargaining chip with the hegemony. Their interrogation methods are unnecessarily brutal. Randy stepped closer, pulling her into a quick embrace. Have I told you lately that I love how your mind works? Frequently. Her emerald eyes glinted with amusement. But I never tire of hearing it. The ship accelerated away from the station, its advanced cloaking systems rendering them invisible to conventional sensors. On the bridge, Randy dropped into the captain's chair, checking the navigation display. So, he asked, did you get it? Aurelia held up a small crystalline data core, its surface etched with intricate patterns. The complete coordinates to the nexus point, if the legends are correct. We could access the multi-dimensional gateway, Randy finished, eyes widening, travel to universes beyond this one. Precisely. She inserted the crystal into the ship's central console. Though the dangers are substantial. The display flickered, then projected a swirling map of energy pathways connecting points across multiple planes of existence. At the center pulsed a brilliant node, the nexus point. According to this, Aurelia said, studying the projection, the gateway opens once every 300 years. The next alignment occurs in 17 days, Randy calculated, leaning forward. That's cutting it close. It gets worse. Aurelia's expression turned serious. The nexus is located in the heart of the Forbidden Zone. Randy whistled. Hegemony territory, heavily fortified, supposedly guarded by autonomous weapon platforms that predate even your civilization. And now the hegemony knows we're interested in something in that sector. Aurelia nodded toward their unwilling Vexar passenger, now secured in the ship's holding cell. The ship's sensors suddenly blared a warning. On the view screen, 5 hegemony cruisers appeared, moving to intercept their position. They've deployed quantum trackers, Aurelia announced, her hands flying across the controls. They can detect our energy signature even through the cloaking field. Randy's expression didn't register concern. Instead, a slow smile spread across his face. He tapped a sequence into his control panel, and a new track blasted through the ship's communication system, AC/DC's Highway to Hell. Perfect timing, he said, reaching for the pilot controls. I've been wanting to test the phase shift engines we picked up in the Andromeda sector. Aurelia shook her head but couldn't hide her own smile. One of these days, your recklessness will be the death of us. After 10 years, unlikely. Randy winked at her. Besides, what's the point of being legends if we can't live up to the reputation? He pushed the engines to maximum. The ship lurched forward, trailing particles of quantum displacement as it accelerated toward the approaching hegemony fleet rather than away from it. You're not seriously planning to go through them? Aurelia asked, though she was already strapping herself into her command chair. Nope. Randy's eyes gleamed with the same reckless spirit that had first awakened Aurelia from her ancient prison. We're going over, under, around, and partially through the 5th dimension. He cranked the music louder as the phase shift engines powered up, the ship beginning to vibrate with barely contained energy. Next stop, he shouted over the pounding rhythm, the nexus point and whatever lies beyond. Hold on tight. The ship vanished in a flash of impossible light, leaving the hegemony cruisers firing into empty space and opening the door to an adventure that would reshape not just one universe, but many. Well, cosmic travelers, you've just witnessed what happens when an Arizona drifter meets a violet-skinned goddess from beyond the stars. As Randy and Aurelia vanish into the 5th dimension with AC/DC blasting and the hegemony left in their quantum dust, I have to wonder, did their adventure capture your imagination as much as it did mine? Like our unlikely hero, I've been on my own unexpected journey these past few days, though mine involved significantly more tissues and cough syrup than interstellar romance. The videos stopped coming because I was temporarily trapped in the gravity well of a nasty flu, physically unable to transform these galactic visions into content for your screens. For a while there, the only alien entity I was bonded with was my fever, but unlike the secretive hegemony, I don't plan on vanishing without explanation. The regular upload schedule will now return to its normal cosmic orbit. Think of the past week as a temporary wormhole disruption rather than a permanent black hole. I hope you missed these journeys as much as I missed creating them. The universe gets awfully quiet without your comments and reactions to guide the next expedition. Did Randy and Aurelia's story resonate with you? Would you have taken that leap into the unknown if a violet-skinned alien with emerald eyes offered you the stars? Or would you have stayed firmly planted on Earth, content to stream sci-fi rather than live it? Let me know in the comments if this tale of bondmates and boundary breakers worked for you. After all, even authors need energy transfers now and then, though I'll settle for likes and subscriptions rather than complete neural bonding. Until our next adventure across time and space, keep watching the stars, your cosmic storyteller.